Hola, this is Dr. Rajendra Prasad. I'm a senior consultant neurosurgeon at a hospital in New Delhi, India. I'm also the medical director of an NGO called the Indian Head Injury Foundation. Most of our work of the foundation is in the field of rehabilitation, in particular neurorehabilitation. I have worked for 35 years as a neurosurgeon, and it is only recently, over the last 7 to 10 years, that I have got involved in rehabilitation because I feel that patients are not cured simply by surgery. Most head injury patients, stroke patients, patients with congenital brain abnormalities need a period of rehabilitation. Sometimes this neuro rehab continues for their whole life. When I was working in England during my training and subsequently, we as neurosurgeons were not involved in the rehabilitation process. We were not involved in preventing head injuries. We were not involved in rehabilitating head injuries. That was somebody else's job. But now when I'm working in a country like India, which is a low-income country, I realize that we need, as neurosurgeons, neurologists, rehab specialists, we have a job to do beyond our own job. So I have been very passionate about supporting neurorehabilitation in our hospital, in our city, and lately been promoting it all over the country. So the topic I have been given today is disability and humanity. The person who is disabled has a right to live with dignity and compassion from people who look after him or her, compassion from the family, compassion at the workplace, and most of all, compassion from people around you who are not interacting with you directly, but you come across them at work or traveling to work in public transport or during your evening or recreation. So at all times, disabled people come across other people who may or may not be understanding of their disability. So not only is a disabled person affected by his own health condition, say a stroke or a head injury sequelae or a spinal injury sequelae, he's also affected by the impairments that these illnesses give him. So a head injury problem could give rise to a speech impairment, a hearing impairment, a vision impairment, a hemiparesis, and these would impact his interaction with society and how he deals and how we deal with these health conditions and impairments will multiply the disability and the environment in which this patient is growing up, is spending his life, that really affects his disability, or it may compound his disability or improve his disability, or in other words, make it less apparent to him. For example, if a paraplegic person with no leg function is given a special car so that he can drive using his hand controls and can go to work or go to the club or go to a cinema, his disability is less of a hindrance. And helping these people physically through assistive technology like wheelchair, walkers, or allowing them to interact socially uh, will really decrease the effects of the impairments that this person is having. So, what I'm saying is disability is the result of the interaction between the person and his environment. So if somebody is on a level ground and his house is on the ground floor, his workplace is on the ground floor, he is driven to work by a driver, and he's easily transported from a wheelchair to a car, he may have less impact of his disability. Whereas somebody, as you see in this picture, has a wheelchair, but getting to an office requires him to climb those steps, him or her climb those stairs. So unless we have a disabled friendly work environment, office space, entertainment space, a lot of disabled people will be excluded from these activities. And that is not humanity. As a government, as somebody who designs hospitals and offices and cinema halls, it is our duty that we make sure that access to disabled people is universal. And it is the government's duty to ensure that no building, no roads are created where a disabled person cannot have access, equal access than other people who are fully able. So, in other words, if the environment is not friendly, then a person is more disabled than he needs to be. So these environmental factors are important, so they can either act as barrier or facilitators. Now, technology lately has been used as a factor to facilitate or improve on a person's disability, and this we are working with the WHO in a project called Assistive Technology in neurorehabilitation, and we want to use the technology to help the disabled people. People who are far away or at home, they can also be monitored or communicated with through mobile technology. So this is a human rights issue. It is the right of a human being, whether he's disabled or not disabled, to have opportunity. Now, as per WHO estimates, 1 billion people, 15% of the world's population, suffer from some form of disability. 98% of children with disabilities do not attend school in countries of low and middle income, countries like India, where I live. This is even more acute if the patient happens to be a girl. Unfortunately, in countries like ours, the boys seem to get preference even if they were disabled. Access to rehabilitation, access to school for a boy disabled child would be more willingly given by a parent than if it was a girl. Then people with disabilities and older people still face stigma, discriminatory attitudes, and disempowerment. The cost of this exclusion is lost opportunities in terms of education, livelihood, and quality of life. If a disabled person, just like head injuries happen mainly to young people and generally males, in these low-income countries, they are the bread earners. So if they do not get rehabilitation early, so much is lost in terms of opportunity, in terms of livelihood and quality of life of the whole family. 80% of such people with disabilities live in the developing world. So these are countries with low resources and very dense population. So if you were to suffer a stroke or a head injury in 80% of the world, if you were in a developing country, the chances are that you will have less access to neurorehabilitation, and you may be just left in bed and not allowed to lead any sort of decent existence. Recently, we visited a place 100 kilometers from a place called Bangalore in India, which is a high-tech capital of India. And we found two patients, one a stroke, one a spinal cord injury of more than 6-7 years. And they had not even seen a doctor, let alone a specialist, let alone rehabilitation. So what are the barriers to healthcare? People with difficulties and disabilities have the same general healthcare needs as others. So they would have the same uh, incidence of appendicitis, gallbladder stones, cough, fever, heart disease. They would have the same incidence of all those diseases as able-bodied people. But they are twice more likely to find healthcare provider skills and facilities are inadequate. 3 times more likely to be denied healthcare simply because they're disabled, and 4 times more likely to be treated badly in the healthcare system. This is not humanity. The way we treat our disabled people is not humane. Costs are a major barrier. Half of the people with disabilities cannot afford healthcare. They are 50% more likely to suffer catastrophic health expenditure, which in most countries like India, low income countries, and many countries in Latin America, they have to have out of pocket expenses. The state is not able to afford treatment for these large population of disabled people. So it's left to either the patient's family not to seek help, or they have to pay expensive rehabilitation, either for rehab therapists or for barriers also prevent access to rehabilitation and assistive devices, which can enable a person to live with dignity if you have a disability and enable them to be independent. There are 70 million people worldwide who need a wheelchair, and only a maximum of 15% have access to wheelchairs. There are 360 million people with hearing loss, but 10% of global needs of hearing aids are met. So this number will keep increasing. There are 1 billion people who need rehab. This number will keep increasing as our population increases, as our elderly population increases, as the road traffic accident increases, and deaths and disability from road traffic accidents increase. So the WHO Global Disability Action Plan was devised by WHO 2014 to 2021. We are in the middle of that. It calls for a system strengthening in all countries so everybody has equal opportunities and there's equity in distribution of rehab facilities. And it calls for innovation, innovative ideas of governments from low and middle income countries. So if 1 billion people today need assistive technology for neuro rehab, by 2050, this number will be 2 billion people. The WHO has started a priority assistive product list, which is transparent, exhaustive, inclusive, was released in May of 2016, and countries were asked to develop their own private priority list. Sorry, not private, priority list. And they could use the WHO APL list. And these are some examples of the priority assistive products list. the number of mobile phone users in the world is expected to pass 5 billion mark in 2019. We need to use these apps for better life of the disabled people. These people will need to be trained in the mobile apps that we will be developing, or we should be developing, in English, in Spanish, in French, in German, in all these languages. We can have access, that these people have access to rehab facilities, and therefore poor people could also lead a meaningful life. As this lady here, she is involved in mushroom growing in her. So our Head Injury Foundation, where I conduct these rehab programs, helps with expertise in setting up rehab facilities, and patients need rehab from inpatient, as we see on the left, to outpatient, so they come to hospital, and all governments should work towards community-based rehab. Community-based rehab is a strategy towards community-based inclusive development for health, education, livelihood, social empowerment. So we have experience of community-based rehab where we send ambulances to the community to conduct rehab. We do patient support group meetings. A family of a person with a head injury, a family of a patient with spine injury or stroke, they know best the problems that they face will be faced by other similar patients. So when you have support group meetings, they tell each other how they handle these problems. One other thing that we have to develop is peer mentoring. One spinal cord injury patient will be a better teacher of how to transfer from wheelchair to bed to wheelchair than somebody who is able-bodied. So we have a peer mentoring program in the community, which we have just started, and I think that is the way forward. It would also give gainful employment to many paraplegics who are job. So we have a lot of equipment that is donated by our donors, and unfortunately these are expensive, and so the person does not have access to these at home, but they have to come to a hospital to avail of these rehab facilities and expensive equipment, and therefore requires that somebody else give up their working time and come to a hospital and bring these people to. A rehabilitation team, whether it's TBI, stroke, or requires a nurse, a psychologist, a speech therapist, a PT, an OT, a psychiatrist, physiatrist, a social worker, a nutritionist, a neurosurgeon, and one person has to be the leader and has to be the case manager, whether it's the neurosurgeon, whether it's the PT or the occupational therapist. They have to lead the patient. Now, why is it that in low-income countries and middle-income countries, people do not have access to rehabilitation? Because of lack of facilities, lack of human resources, lack of finances being put in by the government, lack of awareness. Even physiotherapists and doctors and neurosurgeons, they don't know which is the nearest place that rehab is available. And many people don't even know what neurorehabilitation means. In a country like India with 1 billion people, there are 1 million people every year that need rehabilitation. There are several articles cited here which shows early access to neurorehab will improve outcome. There is clinical evidence. It is also cost effective to rehabilitate people so that they are gainfully employed, they go back to the community. It is cost effective to give neurorehabilitation to people. This is the difference between the same man on the left following a head injury, and the one on the right is the same person 2 years later after rehabilitation. So he's leading a life with dignity. He's a student and gradually will return back to the community as a useful member. Disability, we have already mentioned earlier, is a result of interaction between the person and his environment. And the government, the therapists, the treating doctors, it is up to them to reduce the burden of these barriers. So we have a lot of people in India who are elderly, they have a lot of dementia, and 1 in 10 people in a country like India have dementia. 1 in 16 households has somebody with. So that's a huge problem for every country. This graph shows the impact of that in various countries. And if you have dementia, then your attention may be deficient. You have language disturbance, memory, planning, and organizational abilities may be lacking, and loss of visual skills. So assistive technology is a piece of equipment, software, program, or product that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the function of a person with disability and allow him to lead his life in a humane manner. Now, and with dignity. There will be AT devices, there will be high-tech AT devices, but AT is a great equalizer for individual with disability, and it will allow him participation in school, work, and community. So we have to make use of this assistive technology. Unfortunately, in all low, middle, and high-income countries, the awareness about assistive technology in neuro rehab is lacking. If you have help with assistive technology, you can improve your mobility, improve your hearing, vision, as well as cognitive perception. So there are lots of devices that help mobility, activities of daily living, and communication, and even devices useful for following impairments. There are already out there for position, for vision, for hearing, and we need to make sure that they are available in every country, in every community, and villages. And we have to answer as government, our government has to answer whether these facilities, what facilities out of neuro rehab assistive technology should be available in the primary center, secondary center, or tertiary center, whether you should have walkers in the primary center, or whether you should have mobile electronic wheelchairs in a primary center. This is the resources, because if you have the help of assistive technology, it makes eating, drinking, dressing, hygiene easier. There are more high-tech uh, devices like powered wheelchair and communication devices, such as what we see here. There are devices that help the blind for braille reading, for braille text, as well as mobile canes called safe canes for walking, to make walking safe, to make reading easier. Uh, There's also a computer with speech synthesizer and software that allows written text to be read aloud, so those who can't see can at least. So there's a lot of AT also for hearing impairment, which I've listed over here, from simple hearing devices, cochlear implants. But how about just alerting devices like computer? When it comes on, there should be some kind of light. There should be a light that warns you that the doorbell is ringing, the fire alarm is ringing, the telephone is ringing, so that if you can't hear, at least you can have some signals that you get alerted. And there are lots of devices for communication that we see over here. So AT in environmental control. So if you have somebody lying in bed, not able to get up, and you have no helpers, then even get up to switch off the light, switch on the TV, switch off the, whatever device you have at home, can all be done electronically. These are expensive. They are also required for recreation. So, disabilities and neurorehabilitation, the present situation, these people have poorer health, lower education achievements, fewer economic achievements, opportunities, and higher rates of poverty. This is largely due to the barriers they face in their everyday lives rather than the disability. So, the barriers is what prevents these disabled people to go out of their home, to have a job, to have recreation. So, disability is not a public health issue, but a human rights issue that the WHO has is working on, and it's a United Nations uh, goal that every person with disability has access to rehabilitation, has access to assistive technology, so that such disabled people can go and live a normal life, as normal as can be, can interact with their family, interact with their friends, go to work, earn a livelihood, and be a useful contributing member of society. Gracias. Tenga un buen día. In conclusion, 1 billion people suffer from some disability and need rehabilitation. 80% of these people are in low income countries like India. These are not enough. There are not enough rehabilitation facilities, human resources, trained personnel, finances, or government commitment to help this group of people, most of whom are poor and have few job opportunities, especially after they are disabled. Providing rehabilitation through assistive technology is useful for improving mobility, carrying out activities of daily living, overcoming visual, hearing, communication, and cognitive impairments. This is essential to allow disabled people to live with dignity. This is a human rights issue. Thank you.